When I won 800 million won in the lottery, my parents tried to force me to give half to my spoiled brother. I refused. The next morning, I found them shredding what they thought was my winning ticket. The sound reached me before I saw what was happening. That specific mechanical whirring, the grinding, high-pitched scream of a paper shredder pushed past its limit. The sound of something that was supposed to mean something being reduced to strips hit me the moment I stepped through the unlocked side entrance into my parents' apartment in Nowongu. My mother had called 2 days after I walked out. "Come home. We need to talk. This family takes care of each other." And because I had been loving these people my entire life with a reliability they had never returned, I came. I almost knocked at the front door. Something, some instinct, or the part of me that has always understood this family more clearly than it wanted to and said, "Look first." So I stopped in the entryway and listened before I announced myself. My father Jung-ho was standing at the desk in the living room, the one pushed against the wall beneath the window that looks out over the parking structure. He was hunched forward with his shoulders up, feeding pages into the industrial shredder he had bought 2 years ago for tax documents. My mother Hee-suk stood beside him with her arms folded and her chin elevated, in the posture she wears when she has done something she has decided was both necessary and correct. The shredder screamed, paper fed through in strips, and my name, Ji-yeon Park, printed in the formal black text of what appeared to be an official document, visible for exactly 1 second in my father's hand before it disappeared into the machine. My mother was smiling, not a polite smile, a resolved one, the smile of a woman who has eliminated a complication. In the hallway behind them, his phone raised and steady against the wall, my brother Seo-jun was recording everything. I stood in the entryway for a moment. I felt something move through my chest, a drop. A hollowing, the specific physical sensation of a person who has just witnessed something that cannot be made not to have happened. My parents, standing over a shredder, destroying what they believed was my lottery ticket, smiling about it. Then I looked at the strips of paper falling into the collection bin, and I laughed. Not a quiet laugh, not a brief one, a genuine laugh from somewhere low in my body, the kind that arrives when something is so precisely, completely absurd that the only available response is uncontrollable sound. My mother's smile vanished. My father's hands went still on the shredder. In the hallway, Seo-jun's phone dropped to his side. I walked into the living room still laughing. I need to take you back to the beginning, because the shredder in the living room only makes sense if you understand the 33 years that came before it. My name is Ji-yeon Park. I am 33 years old. I worked at that point, split shifts across 2 jobs, days as an administrative coordinator at a mid-size logistics company in Mapogu, evenings doing freelance translation work for 3 regular clients who paid me per document with the inconsistency of people who only reach out when they need something. I had been living alone in a studio in Dobongu for 5 years, paying my own rent, my own utilities, my own everything, since the day I had left my parents' apartment and understood with quiet and permanent clarity that staying would require becoming someone I had no interest in becoming. I am the older child. This is the relevant fact. In my family, and I say my family with full awareness that I am describing a specific group of people rather than a universal structure, though I have since learned the structure is more common than I once believed. The older daughter is the dependable one, the one who manages, the one who is self-sufficient, who is rational, who can absorb more and sacrifice more and expect less, because that is simply her temperament and her designated function. My brother Seo-jun is 31. He has never paid his own rent. I do not mean this as metaphor. My parents have subsidized Seo-jun's housing continuously since he graduated, including the months when I was working 2 jobs and quietly asking whether they could help cover a health insurance gap, at which point my mother would explain that finances were strained. Seo-jun is, and I am trying to be accurate because accuracy is something I have worked to preserve, a person who has been shaped by what was done to him as much as by what he has done himself. When a person is told their entire life that the world is difficult and that other people will smooth the path, they begin to believe it. Seo-jun believed it. By 31, the belief had become so foundational that he could no longer recognize it as a belief. It was simply how things were, his reality, the one my parents had constructed for him while constructing a different one for me. Min-jae, his girlfriend of 3 years, a woman I had distrusted from the first introduction, with the intuition that develops from years of watching people navigate my family's particular blind spots, had a quality I can only describe as frictionless ambition. She was agreeable in the specific way of someone who has identified what they want, and decided that agreeableness is the most efficient path to it. She arrived at family dinners with the correct energy. She left with the correct warmth. Behind it was a quality I could not name precisely but could feel clearly, the performance of a partner without the architecture of one. I had mentioned this once carefully to my mother. She had said, "You're critical of her because Seo-jun is happy and you're not." I filed that and moved on. The lottery ticket was a Wednesday habit. There is a convenience store near the Dobong station exit I pass every evening after my translation work. The same store, the same tired owner who always has the radio on, where I had been buying 1 ticket per week for 2 years with the specific logic of someone who understands probability but has decided that 4,001 is a reasonable weekly investment in the possibility possibility of a different life. I bought one ticket. I put it in my coat pocket. I forgot about it for 5 days. Then on Monday morning, I found it while looking for my building key card, and I checked the numbers on the lottery app the way I always check even though I never win. And I read the confirmation screen 4 times before I allowed myself to understand what I was reading. 800 million won. I sat on the edge of my bed in my studio in Dobonggu for approximately 15 minutes. Then I called my attorney. Her name is Minji Cho.
She has been in private legal practice for 15 years, specializing in financial and civil matters, and she is the person I had contacted 4 years prior when a client had refused to pay for completed translation work, and she had recovered the full amount in 9 days with the efficiency of someone who does not consider losing a realistic outcome. Minji, I said, I won the lottery. A pause. How much? 800 million. A longer pause.
Don't tell anyone yet, she said. Come to the office tomorrow morning. We'll establish the structure before you claim. What structure? The prize goes into a legal entity rather than your personal accounts, she said. It makes the money significantly harder for anyone to pressure or pursue directly. She paused. Do you have family who might be a problem? I thought about Seojun.
About my mother saying this good fortune belongs to all of us at my grandmother's memorial, regarding a sum that had been specifically designated for me.
Yes, I said.
Tomorrow morning, Minji said. Don't say anything before then. I didn't say anything before then. I said something that evening. This was my error, not the telling, the timing. I had intended to wait until the structure was in place, until the claim was filed and protected.
But that evening, I was sitting in my studio with 800 million won in my coat pocket and my parents 20 minutes away on the subway, and I felt the specific weight of wanting someone who loved me to simply be glad for me. I stopped at the bakery near the station. I bought a box of chestnut cakes, the kind my mother likes. I took the subway to Nowongu with a shaking heart and the box warm in my hands, and I showed my father the confirmation screen on my phone. He did not smile. He looked at the number, and he said, "This is a blessing for the whole family. 400 million will give them a real foundation." 400 million, said as a conclusion, not a proposal. I looked at Seojun. He was sitting across from me with his eyes lowered in the specific performance of reluctance, the downcast expression of a person who wants something and has learned that appearing not to want it is more effective than asking. There was a slight curve at the corner of his mouth. He thought the decision had already been made. Half? I said. You're by yourself, my mother said, in the tone of a woman clarifying something that should be self-evident. No partner. No children yet. What do you need with that much money? I had been hearing that sentence in different configurations my entire life. You can manage on less. You're capable. You don't require as much. You'll be fine. The logic that transformed my self-sufficiency into the justification for reducing my portion. No, I said. It's my ticket. I bought it. I won it. My father's palm came down on the table. The chestnut cakes shifted in the box. After everything we've done for you, how can you be this selfish? What have you done for me? I said, quietly. The question was genuine and the answer seemed worth hearing. No one answered it. Seojun stood up. He didn't cry. Seojun expresses grievance differently than that, through a particular wounded stiffness, the posture of a man who has decided he has been wronged and is giving the room a moment to acknowledge it. I knew you'd be like this, he said. You've always looked down on me. You think because you work 2 jobs you're better than everyone. I produced the short, involuntary laugh of a person hearing an accusation so distant from the truth they inhabit that the gap is briefly funny. Seojun, Mom and Dad are still paying your rent. My mother stood. If you walk out of here without promising to share, she said, don't come back. It landed. I want to be honest about that. It landed. The threat of a closed door from the people who are supposed to hold the permanent open one. I felt it in the center of my chest, which is where I hold things I haven't yet fully processed, and I let myself feel it for 3 seconds, and then I picked up my bag. I walked to the front door. She called after me. If you refuse to help your brother, I will find a way to make sure you get nothing from this. I did not respond. I took the subway back to Dobonggu. I called Minji. They know, I said. Obviously. She said, tomorrow morning, first thing, do not go back before then. I went back 2 days later, because I love them. That is the only reason, and it is a true one. And I have examined it carefully since. What's wrong with you? My mother said, when the laughing didn't stop. I steadied my breathing. 800 million won. In a legal structure Minji and I had spent 4 hours building the previous morning. The claim filed through the entity she had created for this specific purpose, which meant the prize was no longer attached to my name in any way that could be threatened, contested, or redirected. And my parents, standing over an industrial shredder in their living room, having destroyed what they believed was my winning lottery ticket. Do you actually think, I said, still collecting myself, that the Lottery Commission mails an 800 million won confirmation document to an address where I haven't lived for 5 years? My father's hands came off the shredder. It had your name on it, he said. It was a promotional notice, I said, from a credit card company. One of those mailings that lists a prize amount in large text on the outside to get you to open it. I had in fact received it several weeks earlier, brought it to the apartment during a visit because my mother had mentioned she was looking at travel rewards cards, and left it on the desk when she'd said she would look at it later. I left it here by accident. Weeks weeks ago. The silence in that living room was complete. My mother's face shifted through several colors before settling on something I had not seen there before. "You're lying," she said. "The real ticket is in a legal account established yesterday morning with my attorney Minji Cho." I took out my phone, not to show them anything, simply to have it in my hand, because I knew what was coming and I wanted to be prepared. "The claim is already being processed. The prize transfers directly to the entity. There is no legal or financial mechanism by which anyone can redirect or contest it." My mother made a sound that was not quite a word. "You set us up," she said. I want to be precise here, because "set us up" is the phrase she chose to describe a situation in which she had located what she believed was my winning document, fed it into a shredder, and had my brother film the entire process. "No," I said. "You found a piece of my mail on your desk. You decided it was my lottery confirmation. You shredded it, and Seojin recorded it." I looked at my brother, who had come out of the hallway and was standing near the bookshelf with his phone at his side, his expression uncertain in a way I had never seen on him before. "You set yourselves up." Seojin made a sound, not quite a word, something that had started somewhere in his chest and couldn't find its proper form on the way out. "You decided it was my lottery confirmation. You shredded it, and Seojin recorded it." I looked at my brother, who had come out of the hallway and was standing near the bookshelf with his phone at his side, his expression uncertain in a way I had never seen on him before. "You set yourselves up." Seojin made a sound, not quite a word, something that had started somewhere in his chest and couldn't find its proper form on the way out. "Tell her, Mom." His voice was unsteady. "Not performed?" "Structurally unsteady, the kind that comes from something that has been held in place too long by force. Tell her why we actually need the money." "Seojin." My mother's voice went to the specific register she uses when her control over a situation is ending and she is trying to prevent the ending through sheer authority. "Stop. Tell her," he said, "or I will." My mother turned toward her son, the protected one, the one she had spent 31 years building a perimeter around. The perimeter was coming down. "Minjae has debts," Seojin said. And then the sentence broke open the way sentences do when someone has been maintaining them by force. All at once, the seams giving way simultaneously. "Business debts." She told me it was an investment, a partnership with someone she knew. But it wasn't. It was a loan. Multiple loans. From people who are not, they're not banks. And she used my name on some of the paperwork. I didn't know all of it. I thought I was signing something else. And then 3 months ago, they started calling. And then they came to the apartment. And she said once my sister's money came through, I looked at my parents. My father's face had the quality of a man whose own accounting had just been presented to him. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. "Almost a year," Seojin said quietly. "And you?" I looked at my father. "You knew." He said nothing. "They co-signed," Seojin said. "Minjae asked them. She told them it was temporary. She told them, 'Enough,' my mother said. But it was already past enough. The sentence had been released and the next part arrived the way next parts arrive when a door that has been held shut is finally opened. "Dad's retirement account," Seojin said. "She borrowed against it. He let her. Because she said once your money," someone knocked on the front door. Not a neighbor's knock. Not a delivery knock. The knock of people who have arrived with a specific purpose and made a decision that courtesy was no longer useful. A man's voice from the landing. "Mr. Park! We know you're home. You said by this week. We're here for what you promised." My father's face went the color of the wall behind him. In that color, in that exact shade of a man who has reached the end of his available moves, I understood the full shape of it. They had not wanted my money out of love. They had not come to me because they believed genuinely that good fortune should be shared among family. They had come because they were already going under before I walked through the door with the chestnut cakes and the shaking heart, and my lottery ticket had appeared to them not as my luck, but as their emergency exit, a door they had already decided was communal property before checking whether I was willing to open it. My parents had co-signed debt they had not fully examined, on the word of a woman they had not sufficiently questioned, while my brother had signed documents he had not fully read. They had come to me, not as parents. They had come as people drowning in a situation they had constructed, reaching for the nearest available surface. "What are you doing?" My father grabbed my arm when I took out my phone. "Calling the police. You'll make everything worse." "No," I said. I removed his hand from my arm with the deliberateness of someone who has made a final decision and is carrying it out without excess. "You made this. I'm making sure it's documented correctly." The officers arrived in 10 minutes. The men at the door, 2 of them, with the particular manner of people who collect money for lenders whose rates do not appear in regulated documentation, were identified, questioned, and asked to wait in the building lobby, while their conversation with my father was recorded in an officer's report. I stood in the living room with the shredder still warm and gave my account to Officer Hyun-suk Lim, 14 years with the No One station, who received the information with the thorough attention of someone who understands that the specific sequence of events determines the legal shape of the situation. "Your parents destroyed what they believed was your winning lottery ticket?" she said. "They believed that's what it was," I said. "It was a credit card promotional mailer. She wrote something. And they had contacted you beforehand to come over?" My mother called and said she wanted to talk. "That family takes care of each other." Another note. "We'll need to document the shredder and the contents of the collection bin," she said. I nodded. Seojin was sitting on the couch with his elbows on his knees. His phone was on the cushion beside him, screen down. The recording was presumably still on it, the footage of my parents destroying what they believed was my ticket. I had not asked him to preserve observe it, but I noted its presence. Min-jae arrived 40 minutes later, in a rideshare. I know the precise sequence because Officer Lim's report, which Min-jae obtained the following week, documents it with timestamps. Min-jae arrived at 6:23 p.m. The rideshare pulled to the curb. She stepped out and saw the patrol car in front of the building entrance. She looked at it for 3 seconds. She turned and began walking in the direction she had come from. She was not quick enough. Seojin had come out onto the building steps when he heard the door. He was calling her name. He was asking what was happening. I understood, reaching for the version of her he had believed in through every signal that should have changed his belief. She did not look at him. "Whatever they told you," she said to the officer who had come down the steps, "I didn't sign anything with them. That was their decision, their signatures. I have nothing to do with their financial arrangements." Seojin stopped on the steps. He stood there in the November air and looked at his girlfriend of 3 years and understood something. I could see it cross his face from 15 feet away, that he had been actively not understanding for a long time. At the station, the situation continued to clarify in the way that situations clarify when the pressure holding them together is removed. Min-jae had borrowed from lenders whose structure exists outside regulated channels. The repayment expectations were significant. My parents had co-signed as guarantors on a document Min-jae had described to them as a formality during a family dinner at which the paperwork had appeared after the soju, and they had signed. When the officer asked about the money Seojun had transferred to Min-jae over the past 8 months, transfers that appeared in the account documentation Min-jae had been required to produce, she looked at the table. "He gave that to me voluntarily," she said. "I didn't ask him for it specifically." Seojin was in a chair across the room. I was 2 chairs away. I did not look at him. I looked at the wall in front of me and thought about 33 years of being called the capable one, the self-sufficient one, the one who needed less. And I thought about how that framing had always contained something accurate, even when it was being used incorrectly against me. I am capable. I am self-sufficient. I had simply never been permitted to direct those qualities toward my own life, instead of everyone else's emergencies. Now I could. The next morning, I went to Min-jae's office in Mapo-gu. Min-jae Cho, attorney, 15 years in practice. The person who had called my financial instincts exceptional during our first consultation, in a way I had dismissed at the time, and have since revised my opinion about. She had the final claim documentation prepared. The prize, 800 million won, would transfer to the legal entity over the following 3 weeks, according to the Lottery Commission's standard processing schedule. The entity had 4 designated purposes: a property acquisition fund, a professional development account, an investment reserve, and an emergency buffer, all structured to minimize tax exposure and maximize flexibility across a 10-year horizon. "Family pressure?" she said. "There was pressure," I said. "It's been resolved." She looked at me over her glasses. "Resolved how, specifically?" "My parents shredded a credit card mailer. Min-jae was detained and released." Seojin gave a full statement. A pause. "And Seojin? He's at his parents' apartment," I said. "He has nowhere else to go right now." Min-jae wrote something. "Your parents' financial exposure from the co-signing? That's between them, Min-jae, and her creditors," I said. "I've given a statement to Officer Lim at the Nowon station documenting yesterday's events. Whatever they face from the guarantee, they'll need to address through their own resources. They'll try to reach you," Min-jae said. "They'll try," I said. "That's why I'm here." She drafted the formal notice that afternoon, a document informing my parents, by name, through registered mail, that all contact was to be directed through her office, and that any direct contact at my workplace or residence would be documented and addressed through appropriate legal channels. I signed it. Min-jae signed it. It was sent the following morning. What followed was not dramatic. It was the specific, grinding, undramatic process of a life restructuring itself around new conditions. The prize cleared in 22 days. I bought an apartment in Mapo-gu, a neighborhood I had been passing through for years on the way to translation clients, noting the buildings with the quiet attention of someone who knows exactly what she wants and is simply tracking the distance to it. The apartment was on the 6th floor of a building renovated 4 years prior, with south-facing windows that held the afternoon light in a way that made me stand in the empty space for a long time before I told the agent yes. I left the logistics company. Not abruptly, I gave full notice. I completed all outstanding work, I wrote a detailed handover document for the person taking over my role, and I made sure the junior coordinator who had been managing twice her official workload was properly acknowledged before I left. My translation clients, I transitioned to a colleague I had worked beside for 3 years. Then I sat in my new apartment and thought carefully about what I actually wanted to do. I had a degree in business administration and a secondary focus in communications. I had 8 years of practical experience across corporate coordination, freelance translation, and client management across several industries. I had, it turned out, 800 million won and no obligation to justify how I used any of it. I enrolled in a professional interpretation certification program. I began building an independent consulting practice focused on Korean English business communication and contract review for international clients, work that combined everything I had been doing separately for years into a single coherent practice that was, finally, mine. I was good at it. This should not have surprised me as much as it did. It took me longer than it should have to say this without qualification. I am good at language, at precision, at understanding what people mean beneath what they say, and at helping people communicate across the gaps. I had been spending those abilities on other people's urgent needs for so long that I had never aimed them at anything I had chosen for myself. My parents attempted to reach me through 5 different relatives over 7 months. My uncle Chang-soo, who I respect and who came with visible discomfort, twice. My mother's older sister once. 2 cousins on separate occasions. My parents' longtime neighbor, Mr. Kwan, who had known me since I was 7 years old and who delivered the message with evident distress. Tell her we miss her. Tell her the door is open. Tell her a family doesn't have to end this way. My father sent no direct messages. I don't know whether this was pride or shame or a form of dignity he managed to find late. I have not settled on which of those possibilities I would prefer. Seojin texted me once, 6 weeks after everything on a Sunday evening. The text said, "I should have told you the truth sooner. I'm sorry, nothing else." I wrote back, "I know. That is the truest response I had." Whatever Seojin is, whatever the combination of his nature and what my parents made of him has produced, he is now a person navigating consequences that arrived from multiple directions, without the girlfriend he believed in and without the family financial structure he had taken as permanent. I have thought about what I owe him. I have thought about it with the same precision I now apply to every significant decision, because I have learned that these two kinds of accounting are not as separate as people pretend. What do I owe? On what terms? For what purpose? I don't have a complete answer. I have the beginning of one. I owe him honesty when he is ready to receive it, and I owe him nothing that he has not requested in his own words and his own time, and I owe myself the right to decide what any support looks like and whether the conditions for it exist. That is as far as I've gotten. The last time a relative delivered a message, my uncle Chang-soo, my mother's voice arriving through his obvious discomfort. The door is open. Family doesn't end like this. I was standing at the window of my apartment in Mapo-gu, looking at the street 6 floors below. Sunday afternoon. The specific quality of November light in Seoul, the way it cuts flat and gold across the buildings in the late afternoon, and makes everything look slightly more solid than usual. I thought about the living room in Nowon-gu, about the shredder, about the moment I had understood what they were doing and felt the drop in my chest, and then 1 second later, laughed. I thought about my mother's smile when she believed she had solved a problem, the satisfaction of a woman who believed she had closed a door. She had shredded a credit card mailer and called it power. I looked at the street below. The satisfaction of a woman who believed she had closed a door. She had shredded a credit card mailer and called it power. I looked at the street below, at the city that was mine now in a way it had never quite been. Tell her I don't need the door she's offering, I said to my uncle. He looked at me. I have my own. The ticket is framed, not the original. That's in Minji's files as part of the claim documentation. A printed copy, in a simple frame, that hangs in my home office next to my interpretation certification, and a photograph of the Mapo-gu apartment on the morning I received the keys. 4001. A Wednesday habit. A tired store owner with the radio on, who has no idea that the ticket he handed me across the counter reorganized everything. I pass that station sometimes on the way to client meetings. I don't stop. He has moved on to the next Wednesday, the next person, the next 4001. That's how it works. You carry something ordinary for 5 days and then you find out what it was. The thing no one tells you about winning something large, the thing that doesn't fit in the version of the story people want to hear, is that the money was never the most significant part of what I found. The most significant part was what I discovered when I said no, what I learned about who was standing beside me, what I found when I stopped being the capable one who could handle more and absorb more and expect less and became the only one responsible for deciding what happened next. What I found was I could. I had always been able to. I had simply never been the one holding the ticket before. Same formula, same emotional architecture, same word density. Swap to Jeon Park, Korean setting, Seoul. Brother Seojin instead of sister, girlfriend Minjae as the debt source. Shredder instead of fire, attorney Minji Cho, officer Hyun-suk Lim, and 1 instead of pesos.